I have here the first segment of a collection that I bought in February of 2021. The collection had all sorts of sealed product, cards and binders. Those were mostly complete sets with some extras. And then also lots of boxes full of extra cards. So it was kind of a situation where the collector started to put sets together, but he had a lot of extra cards left over. So there's a lot of stuff that I haven't gone through yet. I'm going to start out with the early sets as they came in binders. One of the things I noticed about these, and it'll probably be something I'll be looking at as we go throughout this video, is these were kept in the Ultra Pro sleeves. Not only Ultra Pro made these, but they kind of have a tough plastic feel to them. They're not like the soft sleeves that I prefer. And unfortunately, when you store cards like this in binders, and I took them out of the binders, it's kind of tedious to flip through them. So they were stored in binders like these. And if you store them upright, so if you store them this way, it tends to bend the cards on the sides at the bottom. So I'm not really sure what the exact terminology in terms of physics would be, but yeah, the cards on the edges tend to get a lot of stress on them, especially at the bottom. So the more to the front you are, it's not good for that. So I recommend if you keep cards in binders, you store them flat. This one isn't so bad, but you store them flat down instead of up on their ends like books. So like the Luke, for example, here was pretty good. I already looked at him. The Luke is nice, doesn't seem to be many bends. Maybe a slight, not even a warping there. That card's just fine. And, you know, some of these cards were in bad shape before they were put in the binders, like that one. That Luke is pretty rough, but still a very playable copy. The Obi-Wan, on the other hand, did not fare well, so I'll take him out. The point is, you know, if you're storing your cards up on the end, and there's people who probably know more about this than I do, but I recommend store them with the back of the binder on the shelf instead of the very bottom of it. So yeah, this Obi-Wan, and it's a little bit harder to see in the video maybe, but they tended to get just a bit more bent than I'm usually comfortable with, so I'll probably have to sell these ones as played. And the Han also, I think he was in the middle. Sometimes you get, I think that's what people refer to when they say binder wear. I think he's got that nick on the side that a lot of cards do. We'll probably be able to see that in the light. So if you look on the left side there, and it's probably even easier to see on the back, that's from the ring of the binder itself. So even if you don't really roughhouse your cards when they're in the binders, that's just an ugly defect that I see on all sorts of cards, even from stores who are selling cards labeled as near mint or whatever. Sometimes I'll get those in with that kind of wear on there. Still very playable if you're playing with sleeves. I suppose you probably could tell that it was like that, but no more than you could tell if it was a foil. But at the same time, if you're somebody who likes cards in decent shape, it's not going to be good. But yeah, going through it, looks like everything was sorted similar to how I sort things. Well, maybe not. It looks like the main characters were first, but definitely characters together. And there's not going to be a lot of great ones here. Got, of course, our Seekers. But what's kind of a bummer about this is a lot of the good cards are on the side. So this Obi-Wan's lightsaber, I'll take a look at. And again, I mean, I kind of had an idea that the cards were a little bit bent when I was making my offer, but there was a bit more that were rough than I had anticipated. So this Obi-Wan saber, I should say, doesn't seem to be too bad. Put him carefully back in. I'll maybe check the Falcon too. Oh, there's more than one Falcon in here. So that's always a nice surprise when you reach in a sleeve and you get multiple cards. Ooh, 2 black border ones. So doesn't seem to be much binder wear here, but that one has a bit of a rough surface, but still a pretty nice card. So I guess the good news is that tends to be only towards the front and maybe towards the bottom a bit. You can kind of see a bit of bending here. The sleeves I like instead are the Ultra Pro. They're these newer sleeves, softer, because the older ones are actually such a hard. This is too, such like a hard plastic. It seems, and I'm not sure if this is true, but it seems like the plastic itself bends the cards. So as long as you store the cards on their backs rather than up on the ends, It seems to work nicely. So this is the cards in here. You're not going to get a situation where the sheets bend the cards. You could have a lot of weight on the cards that's going to bend them. But yeah, I brought this from some common and uncommon sets I keep in binders to help me sort. So I would highly recommend softer sleeves that don't put stress on the cards themselves just by the nature of the sleeves. But going through the sets will probably go a little bit faster. I'll probably only stop when we see cards of a special note. And once you get into the effects and stuff, there's quite a few useful things, but nothing that's like too much of a disappointment if it gets damaged. But looks like these are pretty well organized, alphabetized in some sense, but not always. Jedi presents, I'm kind of short on those. I'll check and see if there's more than one. I have plenty of white border, but okay, just one. And it's on the bottom left, which always makes me nervous. It seems like that's where the most stress goes on the cards, but yeah, just a little bit. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit more than I'm comfortable with, but at the same time, it's got good surface. It's not one I think that's just enough to say it wouldn't be near mint, but it's not damaged anyway. It's not like it's creased. It's just got more of a warp than you like to see on Premiere. For Reflections cards, like Reflections 2, I mean, you're going to see way more than that. Here's our Vader. And looks like there's one Vader. Okay, decent surface. Any warping going on? Yeah, kind of the same as before. Not terrible. So that's a nice card. Stored in the hard sleeves is just something. I think if you got your cards in sleeves like this, it's worth investing in softer ones where the cards are going to hold up their own weight rather than having the sleeves kind of shape them. Because I've gotten quite a few collections in where it seems like, depending on the sleeves you chose and depending on the pages you chose, it did a lot of damage to the cards. Also with whether you stored them on the end or not, but I've probably talked about that enough. Just became a little bit nervous going through these, flipping through them initially, that I was going to have a bunch of damage here. Okay, Devastator and Vader's tie, popping out the top a little bit. Into the sights and effects for the dark side. So there's all sorts of stuff here in terms of sets, but I don't want to keep the video going too long. Alright, there's our Chewbacca and Wedge. How's Chewie doing? Quite a few of them in there, and that's encouraging when you got a bunch of cards. Just the card stock itself helps shore up the cards, I feel, from that bending that I'm worried about. So real nice shape. Pretty much in any cards I've seen, almost any cards I've seen in here. Any condition issues are with warping, not so much with surface wear or edge wear. Seems like if you played these were in sleeves, and probably, oh, Corellia, nice. It's a good system. More popular now, I would think, with the new virtual version that came out that makes it more playable in the Smuggler's deck. So in New Hope, got Red 5. I'll take a look at Red 5. Oh, there's at least one in there. Well, obviously there's at least one. There's two, white border and black border. And those look nice. It's about as close as you can get to pack fresh if it's been sitting in somebody's collection for a decade or two. Okay, so a lot more New Hope. New Hope didn't really have a ton of super interesting stuff for the dark side. There was the Death Star, of course. And you had the Conquest Star Destroyer. There's our Luke for Hoth. And what else? So there's going to be some cool snow speeders here, Rogue 1, 2, and 3. No white borders for these ones. Was there a white border Luke? No. Into the interrupts now. That's a pretty cool page right there with the Star Destroyers and AT-ATs. A lot of effects. Trample. Always a fun card to get. Don't know if I've ever actually had it work, but I've attempted it a few times. I should probably try to trample lower ability people. Okay. So this is that ESB introductory 2-player game set with a Rebel Leader pack there. Alright, let's see how Yoda did. He's in the middle of this whole binder, so I'm hopeful not too much bending there. Ooh, there's a few of them. Wow, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Yodas. Okay, that's nice. Front and back looks pretty good. Nice gloss. Dagobah's one where they're just kind of easy to smudge. But these all look pretty good. Nice looking cards. I was short on Yodas. I'm happy about that. It's probably close to a $20 card these days. You got a couple Lukes in there too. Looks like 3 Lukes. Lots of Dagobah effects. A lot of weird cheesy stuff, but that they've had to errata, or chose to errata, I suppose. And what else? Okay, the Bounty Hunters. Interrupts and stuff. I'm sure we'll get to the starships soon. That's one of the cooler parts of this set. There we are. How many Executors? Oop, at least one. And if it's backwards, that means it's at least one extra. I keep saying that. Okay. So black border looks real nice. None of those binder dents on that side. And the white border looks a little bit cloudy, but that looks pretty good too. Okay. So that is encouraging. The closer we're getting to the middle, it seems like the cards held things together a bit better. They held their own, supported their neighbors, you might say. Got a Boba Fett. Just one in there, it looks like. Oh, there's a missing card, no big deal. If there's a Boba, that's the only character I'm super concerned about out of Cloud City. It's one of the more plentiful sets. Into locations. Looks like Darkside came first in this one when the other set's Lightside was put in there first. So Luke, oh, interesting. There's no Luke, but Han and Leia. Okay, this Han looks a little bit warped. Let's see what happened to him. And again, it's not as bad as I initially thought looking at it. So part of that could just be the bending of the sleeve here. Makes me think the card's going to be worse. Into Cloud City and Jabba's Palace. I won't spend too much time on Jabba's Palace. If you're interested in that set, I'm sure there's plenty of pictures to see. It's just, gotta be honest, I'm a little bit bored with Jabba's Palace. Although I do love playing the rep decks, so maybe I should give it a bit more love. Okay, I'm sure we'll see our Leia. There's our R2. Where's our Leia? Probably the biggest light side card in this set. Nothing yet. These are almost exclusively in alphabetical order. The other ones were quite a bit different than that. Okay, one Leia, nice. And one of the better cards in the set, Blaster Deflection, if we'll see it here. Huh. Where did I miss that at? Yeah, I completely overlooked it, but I don't see Blaster Deflection in here. So that's interesting. That's one of the better interrupts. Maybe it was earlier on, who knows. Okay, so that was Premiere through Jabba's Palace, sort of the first generation of the cards and from a certain sense. And for this video, I'll just finish out with a few more sets, not everything. Just gotta get all these pages up on the table here. Okay, so these sets were a lot thinner, which is a bit of a concern for the condition in terms of, you know, how much things got warped. So that one, it's not super clear, but seems like it's not just curved in or curved out. It's got kind of a sideways twistedness to it. But honestly, this is, if the front pages are all commons and uncommons and those took the brunt of it, then that's not a big deal. I'm going to look at more of the bottom ones too. So this was on the bottom. It looks like it got, okay, so there's a clear bend there. But again, that's an uncommon, not the biggest deal. But having a lot of empty space in these pages also isn't good for your cards. So if you got these crinkly plastic ones, I recommend getting rid of those. It's worth it in the long run. Especially if I buy your collection, I would rather they be in the other ones. Okay, Tatooine Occupation, that's a nice card. Looks like this one's a bit damaged. This is important for the Imperial Entanglements decks. Alright. This one is pretty rough, but it looks like this is not from the binder. So there's a crease. There's definitely a bend there. Is it enough to be a crease? Not quite of a wrinkle on the back, but the corners are clearly creased. This other one, the one behind it, actually looks pretty good. Minimal warping, hardly any. So that top one, I'll try to feel it again through a card sleeve to see if it's marked in any way, but it didn't look so bad, and I've used worse cards without being able to tell. Helps to have thick sleeves, though. Ooh, I'm short on Coruscants, and this one looks a little bit rough. Yeah, that's definitely a play copy. Look at all that edge white. Okay. So into the starships now. Didn't seem to be that many objectives. The Vengeance. One copy of the Vengeance. Looks pretty good. I'm getting an... Ooh, there's a Ben Kenobi in here. I'm not finishing my sentences. I'm seeing cool cards fast enough. And there's 2 copies, maybe more. Alright, those look in nice shape. Yeah, that's not bad. Thankfully he was in the middle of the binder. And keep cruising through a bit. Probably try to get to Endor. Lots of neat stuff in Special Edition, but it's just such a big set that the neat stuff is kind of spread out in terms of what you're going to find on any given page. Although I do love the starships in here. Those X-Wings, man. Spiral, too. Okay, so now it looks like it's going to get real thin. So, yeah, it looks like we're into the Endor now. Try to keep this video under 20 minutes. Okay. So a lot of empty pages there. Not going to be good for the warp on the cards. A couple of Chewbaccas. Are these starter Chewbaccas? We'll see. If we can see from the copyright date. So, 2000, 2000, and 2000. All of them. It doesn't look like it's quite coming up on the camera. So those are the starter deck ones. I mean, same game text, just not quite as rare as the other ones. Crix, General Soul is probably the same. 2000 copyright date. 1999 would be the original. Because the starter decks were actually not Endor starter decks. They were Death Star 2 starter decks with a bunch of Endor cards in them. And other sets, too. And, let's see. So, foils now. Look kind of cool. I learned recently that Reflections wasn't the first foil set, it was Endor. The original Reflections didn't have any Endor cards in it, which made me assume that Reflections came first. But apparently it was just a couple months... Oh, there's an Emperor. Okay. Got so busy talking about foils. How's he? Pretty good surface. A lot of Emperors have a weird corner that isn't quite as beveled. I've noticed that even out of the pack. I've gotten 1 or 2 out of the pack. Alright, that's a nice card. Maybe, well, if you look at the bottom there, that is a little bit warped. Kind of curves up that way, but not too bad. So good surface, slight bending. You could do a lot worse, and I've seen a lot worse. Especially with a popular card like that with the Destiny of 6. Got our Lord Vader. Ooh, look at that. That's from the binder, it's got to be. So just this big dent. Yeah, that's a bummer to see. I can actually feel that one in terms of maybe that's not a good card to have in a deck. Kind of depends on what happens when you get it double sleeved. The imperfections are definitely harder to tell, but I'm sure if you wanted to, you could feel that. So that's got to be a consideration. Death Star 2 system. Some decent starships there. A couple more starships into the light side now. Characters. Nothing too crazy. No Luke. Rebel leadership. That's a nice card. And lots of ships. Okay, this is this must be the Death Star 2 starter deck stuff. So these are the reprints. I've never really seen them assembled together in a binder before. So that's kind of cool. You got the Endor reprints. A lot of the same stuff. Reflections 2 set with a lot of those expanded universe characters like Mara disguised as a dancer in Jabba's court. Tatooine set. well, most of a set, the ones that matter. How many malls? I see a few. Gotta be careful. Ooh, 3 malls. Real nice surface too. Those are good shape. I will take that. Don't know what's missing from here, but hey, if it's not an aura or a mall. So Bulba and Watto, maybe nothing's missing. Maybe these are just spread out. I don't know. It seems like all the characters are there just at first glance. We got our, ooh, that's an AI. Okay. That's also an AI. So alternate images, they're rarer, worth more money, as would make sense. And that closes out the Tatooine set, it looks. Oh, okay. So here's a finale, hopefully. A couple of Coruscant cards. Valorum, oy. So that one definitely warped. That's kind of a bummer, but Valorum's not a high value card. I'm not really sure what causes this, but maybe it's just like a too small sleeve. But sometimes you get sleeves that are super wrinkled like this, probably just too small for the binder pages. He looks okay. It's not too bad. So this is one of those ones, looks like it was never played. So somebody tells you, oh yeah, I got an unplayed Darth Maul. Well, I mean, it got bent up a little bit in the binder. So just because it's unplayed, you got to be careful. It doesn't mean it's near mint. Anyways, that's still a good card. I don't think it's... I'm trying to find the worst angle on the bend here, and I'm not really getting anything disastrous, but it's not one I would definitely not call this near mint, even though the edges and surface are great. So that was the first sets. I'll have the later sets, so like reflections and some odds and ends in a subsequent video. And we'll go through those. And I'll probably go through the commons and uncommons at a different time, and if I found any cool rares in there, I'll pull them out, but I won't make a video for all the commons and uncommons. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you check in for some of the other collection videos that I'll be doing on this particular collection that I bought. Thanks for watching.